Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Their Story Matters right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest is Lisa Wilkes. Forgive me if I'm sounding a little bit stuffed up right now, just a touch of COVID, but we'll work it through. We have a lot to talk about today, but mostly about the compassion that we can have for human and animal alike. She says, as far back as I can remember, I eagerly participated in charitable ventures. The stems of being an extreme empath. It wasn't intentional, exactly, but always searched for better ways, better the lives around her. Sometimes it seems that she had a special built-in antenna that allowed her to sense any suffering within a 5-mile radius. Then she takes the strategy to step in to alleviate that suffering, if it means staying awake for nights on end and working herself to the bone. She clearly recalls saving an injured bunny rabbit when she was 7 years old. She found the wounded bunny on the playground at school. Her first instinct was to carry the rabbit home, gently in the safe plush fabric of her lunch bag. Then she brought the bunny to the vet for immediate medical attention. When she was 9, she wrote a guest editorial for the local newspaper. I grew up in the Chicagoland area in a town called Glenville, listing all nearby animal rescues in need of donation should any youngsters have any extra money to spare for their birthdays. It never occurred to her that anything other than helping people, that she could do anything else, but she had to assist animals and humans alike. This is what we're going to be talking about today. On her blog, she goes very much into detail about everything else that she did, becoming a flight attendant and what that meant. And we're going to also be talking about her book called Mid-Flight. It's her second novel. And it takes the readers to 2038. A flight attendant uncovers a political ploy to declaim 1/5 of the population. Just I mean, we don't want the well, actually, you know what? There's a 30% of the population that is actually being declined by our own choice. Really, I mean, it is actually already happening. So, not so far-fetched. There's always some evil something out there wanting to press the delete button, isn't there? And if only people could step into compassion, just a little more empathy and compassion, I'm not sure they'd be so eager to bring out the swords and, the pushing of the buttons, so to speak. But as an empath, yes, I can imagine the pain you would feel of the suffering. I want to ask the first question is, how do you manage that? Because as an empath, when I feel everything, it can really be a lot. How do you actually put up your barriers around you so you don't take it all in? I think that's an important question for any empaths out there.
I think that is a really important question and one that I am going to be working on for the remainder of my life, really. We did take, when I was in graduate school, I have a master's in social work, and we did take classes on basically being able to preserve our own health and well-being because compassion fatigue is so common
Yes.
and we get vicarious trauma. And I think as an empath, even before all the studies and before I actually learned and delved into that world, I think I always sensed that it was a gift to connect with other people,
Yeah.
animals and humans alike, but it is also a burden because it's a
Mm.
heavy weight to bear. And I knew as a child, probably one of the reasons I'm so drawn to the literary world, but I knew as a child that it was really easy for me to connect with others. And because of that, I had to pay the price of feeling the suffering out there, and there's a lot of it. There
There
is a
is.
lot.
There is, which doesn't mean we're hopeless. It just means actually we're feeling the weight of the world on us. We're in such a transition as people awaken to the higher consciousness, and they realize that higher consciousness is a little bit painful because you are consciously waking up to all that is wrong in the world and maybe all that you have unknowingly and unwittingly participated in. And it's requiring people to step up into that higher frequency of love and compassion for themselves and for everyone else around them. But that transition and that awakening isn't kumbaya and now I'm just smelling roses. It is a painful transition because if you don't acknowledge the pain, how are you going to understand the suffering? How are you going to understand what you can do to stop it?
I think I have accepted that there will be that sort of pain that stays with me when I help other people. I have my little foster cat running around this room. And there are animals euthanized daily, unfortunately.
Yes.
Florida is one of the biggest offenders. I've been to the euthanization room at the shelter, and it is jarring. And I have accepted that there will be pain that comes with acknowledging and trying to understand and trying to better the lives of others. But at the same time, I have thought about it, and I still would rather. It might hurt and it might be really difficult, and there might be nights that I can't sleep because I'm worried about someone else or another creature. But I still would prefer that to living a life where I'm solely focused on my own well-being. I believe that our role is to assist other people and basically take on this journey together. And I also believe that we each have the capacity to do so, but it has to be a choice. And you have to go into it knowing that, yeah, you're going to work really long days. And yes, your head is going to spin some nights because you're just going to be thinking about, this one cat that I couldn't save, this
Yeah.
one dog that like I wasn't able to rescue. But at the same time, all the ones that I'm able to help, all the people that I'm able to spread awareness to, it has to mean something. It is worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can't save them all, but you have to concentrate on the ones that you can save, that both of human or animal alike. And it is it is a hard job. Being an empath where you are out there taking on this role. But on the other hand, if it wasn't you, what would happen to those animals? If we didn't care about each other, I mean, we see so many humans stepping up, helping either the animal world or the human world alike, because we are the ones, all the problems out there, humans have caused, every problem.
I will agree with that. People are shocked. They are
Yes.
shocked when you even mention that because I think we want, and it's not a bad thing, but I think we want to believe deep down that humans are good and
Yeah.
that we have each other's well being in mind. But if you look at all of the species on this planet, all of the forms of life that we know about, there is only one that has
Mm.
consistently caused malice and harm to
Yes.
other creatures, not out of survival, not nature where one thing might kill another to feast. Like, no, we have done it for personal gain, and
Yeah.
we have controlled each other, we have harmed each other, we have harmed our planet. And I half the time that I do these rescues, the ones with the animals, I want to apologize to them on behalf of my
Yeah.
species because the torture that we inflict on these creatures that have done nothing to us, it's pretty unbearable.
If we actually stepped into an animal's heart and just see how pure it is. A lot of humans think that animals don't have a heart, don't have a brain, but they are incredibly intuitive. They are soul creatures that understand a depth of understanding far beyond us as human beings. And that if we step in and actually really link with them, as you said, your cat runs around. When I used to have my dog, she would be at my feet for every show. Or if I was looking after my son's dog, one of them would be on my lap because they wanted that energy. Or they obviously know when you're not well, or they know this, they know that. Animals have a language that many people don't understand. But if you decide to tune into their channel and hear their language through touch, through the way they look at you, the way that they hug you, you would see how much compassion and how much love and how much understanding they have. Yet we do not serve them right because we We deem them, we even refer to some humans just being animals. Well, if they're an
What a
animal,
compliment.
exactly, you've actually just shown somebody has a heart and compassion. So I think you're not really meaning to say that, but it was meant to have been a demeaning statement. And yet, no, we have caused every problem that we live with in the world, but also we are the solution. And it's a question of what we feed. And if we keep feeding the darkness instead of the solution, the darkness grows. So we have to kind of be that light as much as we can be to overshadow that darkness.
I think that's actually kind of an excellent transition, because that is genuinely the theme of this book that I wrote. I typically am a romance writer. My first novel and one of my short stories that was published in an anthology, they were both love stories, and I like to explore that dynamic and the connection between individuals. I like to basically center on internal conflict. So a person that has been hurt in the past and is um, very hesitant to get into a relationship, things like that. I basically focus on internal conflict. But with this book, I really felt over the past few years, I felt that we each have the ability to influence our sphere, and we don't have to subscribe to these rules and these norms that were created by people we never met in
Right.
situations where they probably stood something to gain. So the fact that people are dismissive of animals, I believe we were taught that. I believe we were taught you're better than this other thing that exists. So you get to do what you want. And I don't see the world that way. I've
Mm.
never seen it that way. I've seen it as a collaboration.
Yeah.
And unless we are working in conjunction with each other, there's constantly just going to be this ongoing conflict, and it's going to be so destructive. And we've seen that. So with this book, there is a romance in it, kind of in the background. There's a romance, but really the focus of the book is one person's ability to really sense what is happening in her world. And, she's not the most powerful person on the universe. Like me, she's a flight attendant. Unlike me, she is living 14 years in the future.
Mm.
But um, she senses that there's something wrong. And instead of just turning to cognitive dissonance, which is the easiest thing to do, to just kind of, ignore it or do it anyway or
La la
justify
la
it,
la la la
she
la. That's
says, I'm going to take a stance. I'm going to stand up against this horrible thing that's being done to other people. And it might cost me everything, but I'm going to do what I can in my own sphere. And I am going to, she wants to educate her peers and then let the good work continue.
Yeah, and the thing is, you can educate the peers, and then some will be in denial, right? That's not true. Some will be, oh God, you're asking me to do something about it, and it's like their whole fear base comes forward. Well, what I'm turning a blind eye means I'm safe. If I've got to do something, that means I'm on the radar, and they don't want to be on the radar. They'll make every excuse they can. But we know, and it's been proven, that when somebody stands up for the right reason, stands up for humanity or animal alike, stands up with love and compassion and collaboration, and invites other people, the inspirer that is the inviter, for other people to rise up with them, these are the people that make the difference in the world. It's not the one person, it's the one person being the conductor for the orchestra, and the orchestra all getting on the same page, wanting to really highlight that piece of music. And if we could get more people to do that, which I think we are seeing, we've got to realize we have too many people on the planet. So, to make a dent in that with statements is very, very hard. Much easier today with our medium of social media and everything else. But one of the things we've got to do is not just sit back and leave it up to someone else. Whether you are a drop in the bucket or you're adding a cup, be something, do something, stand for something, because that's how we change what is wrong. If we ignore it, we're just as guilty as the people that are doing it.
I agree. And I think in recent years, I've seen a lot of defensiveness when some type of societal injustice is pointed out. I think some folks tend to internalize that instead of actually addressing the subject at hand. And so in this book, there is this, basically it's a genocide that's being launched by this government in the future. There's kind of a new scapegoat of humans that they feel they can kind of like pin everything onto for their own personal gain. And that, I mean, the details are obviously fictional, but like that is not very far of a stretch from the truth and from what we've seen in this world. And I think that when she first realizes everything that is going on and kind of takes the time to understand basically like the political situation, who's being harmed, sees, you know, this transferring over to her friends and her coworkers, I think that she's met with resistance.
Yeah.
And there are going to be the folks who will choose to believe whatever is easier or more
Yeah.
comfortable for them. It's, you know, their own protection. But she goes ahead because she feels that the people that she's going to be able to connect with and the influence that she's going to be able to have is going to, it's going to help some people. And all she can do is try her absolute best with the tools that she's given and, you know, make waves in this
Yes.
setting where everyone else is very comfortable just kind of leaning back and watching things unfold.
Yeah. Again, it's always those people throughout history that have stood up and said no more, that make the change. And yeah, we've seen a lot of change, the LGBT community, or not in Florida, of course. Florida is
Not
going
in
so,
Florida.
it's so far back. But have you seen The Handmaid's Tale?
Oh, yes, that is one of
Right.
my favorite books. I love Margaret Atwood.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is this really jarring, intense piece of science fiction, like the
Yeah.
book, the show. And then you look at it, and I'll never forget that Margaret Atwood, in one of her interviews,
Yes.
she said that she made sure everything that happened to women in that book has happened to women throughout history because
Right.
it wasn't that far of a stretch. And
No.
we have seen what happens when extremists take power. We have seen what happens when people launch a crusade of hate and they go on basically this bloodthirsty massacre against
Mm,
anything that they have deemed unworthy, whether it affects them or not. We've
right.
seen it. I'm living in the middle of it.
Mm.
And, you know, I'm storming down every door that I can. I wrote my letter to the governor this morning, so I'm sure that he will enjoy reading that. But I feel like, you know, we're watching this unfold and we're seeing this group of people that have become the punching bag for everything. They've become a rally cry for the people that are full of venom and just um, I don't know, either they yearn for like an upper edge, they want to feel better than others. I'm not entirely sure, but we have seen what happens when people use that as their crusade and their
Yeah.
rally cry and how powerful that momentum is. And it just makes me think, my God, if we put all of this time that is spent persecuting a subset of individuals that are not harming others, if we put all of that time into understanding, into
Hmm.
connecting, into
Hmm.
actually politicians, if they did their jobs and they
Ah,
interacted with the
yes.
populations that they claim to represent, then
Hmm.
I feel this would be a non-issue. Human rights has never been controversial, but people make it controversial
Yeah.
because they stand something to gain. And I'm not going to be part of that. I did some work in Texas that could have gotten me jailed, and I know several individuals who were, um, you know, severely punished for just providing information to people who were suffering. And I looked at my spouse and I said, look, if this does get me in trouble legally, know that it was worth it.
Hmm.
Like, there are times where you might have to risk something. And if the cause that you are rallying behind is one that's fueled by love, then your efforts were worth it.
It just takes us the voice has to be, the choir has to be louder. The one thing I don't understand, and this is something that is so beyond my comprehension, is that you have had presidents and people like DS in
Yeah.
and they've been proven to be liars by fact tracking I don't know how many times. They've broken so many laws. And if this had been 20 years ago, they would have been torn and quartered completely. And now it just seems to be mainstream. Now, the crookedness of politicians, they forget that they're working for the people. I did a show a little while ago, a Canadian who had a manufacturing business. And then the government stepped in and said, no, you can't do your manual. We've got to do your manual. And he said, but how can you do the manual of what we're manufacturing? We're the manufacturers. We're the ones that should explain to people how it works. And well, therefore, you've got to pay us. Anyway, he took the government to court and eventually, in the end, lost the family business. And then he wrote a book, and they have tried to ban the book everywhere. They pull it off Amazon, they pull it off everything. Then they put an arrest out for his warrant, and he actually had to leave Canada. And this is all, and
Oh,
this is something he said, it's the clerical people that are running everything, and it's all bribery. And he said there was one judge that outwardly, on record, saying you can bribe any politician or any judge as long as racism isn't involved in it. In other words, you don't, oh no, a black person can't bribe me. I'll know how you have a white person bribe me. And this was on record. This is what I don't understand. Why are we electing people like this? And also, why are we tolerating it? Because those people have shown zero compassion. It's all about them. And if they don't have compassion for other humans, it's only their agenda. Animals are way down on the
oh,
list there.
animals are not even, I mean,
Yeah,
I could spend days talking about everything they've done to humans, but animals, it's even more egregious. And they don't have any defense mechanisms. They
yeah,
can't, sue the government for what they've done. But I kind of am leaning toward the fact that I think people take comfort in what they consider familiar. And if, they're force fed this propaganda, if they are told by the politicians when the politicians get caught doing very illicit, egregious things, if they're
mhm,
told by the politicians that this is a witch hunt and that this is
yes,
actually people targeting me, I think it's
yeah,
easier to believe that than to examine the truth and then have to admit that
yeah.
maybe you didn't get it correct.
You
And the
backed
thing
the
is
wrong
that,
horse. Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty obvious. You can read the first few pages of my book and tell where I stand on the political spectrum. But for me, genuinely, it has very little to do with political alignment because I've I've watched, major news channels, the ones that I like and the ones that I dislike. I've listened to like that rally cry on both sides, but I think getting out there and doing the work, and I did AmeriCorps for 2 years. So I did full-time community service in low income neighborhoods. And I really wanted to understand, like, why is it that some schools are severely underfunded and then other
mhm,
ones have every advantage in the world? And, why is it that this group of people they don't even have healthy food in the areas where they live? It's not accessible.
right.
Like, I spent the time researching it. So when a politician on either side makes a claim, I can evaluate that based on lived experiences, based on, everything that I'm trying to understand and trying to learn instead of taking it at face value because it's easier than challenging what I was taught to believe X amount of years ago. I think people are just comfortable. And once they latch onto, a political side, it's like their source of life or something. Like it's what they align themselves with and how they identify. And clearly, I am more on the liberal side, but I identify as a human being who believes in the worth and value of the other living creatures on this planet. Like whether that, you know, is aligned with this person or that person, that is where I identify, not with some doctrine, with some,
Yeah,
religious propaganda that was pushed through and like used to channel a message of hate. That
yes.
is not,
That isn't any God I want to know. right? I actually did a few years ago. I had somebody on the show where we were talking about religion, and I said, well, God is love, and God is within every one of us. That means that every one of us is capable of being love. And he disagreed. And I'm not a controversial type thing of getting into it, but it was like you represent, religion and God, and you're saying God isn't love. Or is it, for him, it's rules, it's regulations, it's control. And that is what religion turned into, a form of keeping you suppressed, keeping you under control, keeping you as a sheeple. So, because God knows they don't want you to have opinion of your own. And politicians are trying to do the same. These whole people that are trying to, you can't have this book in this library, this can't be in this school, you can't talk about the Holocaust, you can't talk about this and that. If we do not look at our history and look at it for what it was, very bad decisions all around. Those were the repercussions. And if we don't allow our youth to learn from those and make sure that they never repeat it, they're going to glorify what it was. This war, that war, this campaign, because they haven't got the facts. And they go into it glorifying it until the reality hits them of exactly how brutal it is.
I don't know that the reality hits them because the people that are being taught these messages typically are not the marginalized voices. I mean, yes, but those are such a small minority of the population. The people that are being taught in Florida a watered down version of history, a
Mm-hmm.
whitewashed version that does not address race. Look at our
Uh-huh.
country and tell me you can teach American history without addressing race. Um,
Right.
but the people that are being taught this, I feel that it really sets a dangerous precedent because it's saying that we don't value our children enough to provide them with the truth. And
Yeah.
that what we want is to basically turn them into reflections of all the past generations, including all of the really brutal things that
Yes.
happened in those generations. And then the few voices that have been ostracized, that have already been denied rights, that now, thanks to the Florida state legislature, may not even be able to live with their parents if they don't follow strict gender norms. Those few individuals, they've gone on such a crusade to eradicate them and to
Mm-hmm.
silence those voices so that the majority of our students in this state are going to be fed a load of blatant lies so they can
Yes.
continue what we have dealt with forever.
There was a video I saw some time ago of an Israeli and a Palestinian, and these two people were talking before they realized what they were, right? And then a Palestinian realized he was talking to an Israeli, and they were just talking about commonalities before it came up. And the Palestinian's daughter came up, and he goes, "Oh, this Israeli, a really nice man." She must have been around 10 or 11, and she virtually spat on the guy. He's evil, he's the devil, he's this, he's that, just he was the enemy. And if we bring our children up believing that anybody different to us is an enemy, then we're teaching our children to hate instead of to love. If we teach them to hate and they grow up with that hate consumes them and they never switch on their compassion, their consciousness, what is right and wrong. Because we've told them this is right, everything else is wrong, and they don't question it and they don't care because we haven't taught them empathy.
I agree. I think that my rule of thumb in general is, does this cause deliberate harm to others? And if the answer to that is no, self or others, does this cause, like, does this have malicious intent and does this hurt self or others? If the answer to that is no, then I don't think we have any right ever silencing and oppressing those people. If it is literally just a matter of people being able to express themselves and people being able to basically align with whatever they would like to align with in terms of like their own sexuality. Just if we embraced and admired our differences instead of trying so hard to make everyone fit into the same category, I feel like we would
How
progress
boring.
as a
But how
species.
boring to be in the same category. You know, life is the box of chocolates.
I
We don't want the
agree.
same chocolate all the time. This is what's so exciting about the world, of all the different cultures, the different religions, the different ways of doing things, the different dishes, the different music, the different arts. This is what is liberating. This is what unites us, of each culture putting their own beautiful art out there, and we embrace it. And if we're going to have just one blah picture, one meat and potatoes, one point of view the whole time, what's the point of living? Living is to be lived and explored and experienced. It's not a one note.
I agree. I think that people see that type of homogenous culture as somehow benefiting them. And that's why they strive for it so hard. And the
Hmm.
people that have the most wealth and have the most power and have the biggest platform, they don't want diversity of thought because it would harm their power base.
Yes.
So it's really terrifying. I do feel my book addresses this, but I do feel that we are able to be that light in our own sphere, even if it's a
Yes.
small sphere. You know, I'm working with 3 animal rescues right now here in Florida, and I've done website content for nonprofits. I launched my own website back in Texas to help women once the state decided that women should not have control over their bodies.
Mhm.
And I feel that even with the individuals that I've been able to help and knowing how much more work needs to be done, I feel that it's progress. And if everyone could just make those little changes in their life to
Yes.
reflect compassion instead
Yes.
of persecution, if everyone could just make those small tweaks to do their best, like in their own setting, we would not be in this place. And are we going to wait, just like my book, are we going to wait until 2038 and say, oh, wow, there's still deep intrinsic racism and homophobia and transphobia in this country? Like she says at one point in the book, Lexi Brennan says, I really thought that this would be over with by
Yeah.
2038. And I just couldn't help when I wrote that sentence. I'm like, how many times have I said this in my life? How many times? Like,
Honey,
it's
I'm
not
68
20.
and I'm still saying it, right? I'm
Like,
still saying
why
it.
are we
When are we going
still?
to wake up?
And what is it going to take to pull us outside of our comfort zone in order to defend
Yeah.
our brothers and sisters, our fellow humans and animals? Like, what is it going to take? All I can think is, if you have that passion and you have that enthusiasm, and I do, because I don't want to see people suffering. I don't want to see harm inflicted on folks who already have a lot of challenges in society. And I think if we take a stance, and you don't even have to do it through words necessarily. For instance, I'm not going to go around the airline telling everyone that I'm a vegetarian because I believe in like the sanctity of all life. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to like alienate everyone at the airline or make them feel bad. But I am going to tell them about how I joined the leadership board for our animal transport team this year. So I am going to tell them how it's so amazing. All these animals in these high kill states, we have the opportunity with our flight benefits. It's fully volunteer. We fly free anyway. We can fly them to safe homes up north where they don't have the overpopulation problem, and they get adopted and they get rescued. So, like, if you frame it and you really make an intentional effort to show how this is able to like help another living creature instead of being kind of like bashing people over the head with it, which typically does not do much, I think that eventually that message can spread. I think that people might be, they might be willing to consider an alternative to what they just always thought.
Right. Again, inspiration begets invitation. When you inspire people, it invites them to want to do something about it. I've always got little sayings coming to my head, and as you know, activism is talking about it. Actionism is doing something about it. Right? We can talk and talk to the cows come home, but what are we doing about it? And every drop in the ocean counts. And we get so many people. I'm just one person. What can I do? Well, you can join the other people, then it will not just be you, right? or you can make your voice heard, or you can go volunteer at an animal shelter, or you can find homes yourself for animals amongst people that you know. There's always something we can do, even if it's writing to our various politicians to change the thing. We know that when we become a mosquito amongst these politicians, um, and that when we're going to keep biting them, bzz, 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 we're not going away over and over again with the bombardment. And we do it through media. We use media as our source of doing it as well, that eventually they'll give in because they just don't want to be bugged anymore. Right? But we've got to be persistent. And maybe that's the way you can help. Maybe through your social media, if you've got a lot of followers, invite them. Look, this is where I'm taking a stand. I'm taking a stand to do X, Y, and Z. Is anybody with me? And if you can't do this, can you do something else under this umbrella? Let's make a difference out there and let's do it together. But it just needs people with that beautiful energy to put it out there and be that invitation.
I agree. And there are so many opportunities. I think that sometimes the most meaningful form of activism is through volunteering. I think that the biggest difference that you can make for individuals is often spending time with them, learning and understanding their situations, bringing that knowledge back to your community, working to bridge any gaps. That's really what social workers do. They basically bridge the gaps in resources and kind of connect people up to the things that they don't have access to, and they empower and equip people. And so I think that by volunteering, you're able to really forge those connections, and you're able to see where there's a lack and where that can be rectified for different individuals in different circumstances. And I also think, for me, I have such a strong, powerful heart for the LGBTQ plus community. My book features a bisexual flight attendant, and I don't think that that should be anything controversial. And I was told by so many publishers, I couldn't even give you a number, that there's no market for that, and that nobody wants to read about a bisexual individual. And I kept thinking to myself, maybe that's because we haven't allowed there to be a market for it,
Right.
because I'm sure not the only person out there. I'm
Yeah.
not the only one. But I think if people are so alienated and they never get any, connections with other people, they never feel heard or understood, then I think, of course, there's not going to appear to be a market because you silenced it.
Right.
But I
You
think,
didn't back it. Yes.
yeah,
And if you don't back
you made
something,
sure
if you
to
don't allow it to come
swiftly.
out, how do you know? How do you know what people want until you give them something? All of a sudden you've given them something they can identify with. You've given them something that's given them power, right? And how do we, a lot of publishers, again, are kind of sheeple. They just want to make money. They want to put out the safe books, right? They don't want to kind of put out the books that could be controversial. But why is it a controversial thing anyway? Quite honestly, if we concentrated more on the fact that we're spiritual beings having a human existence, our spirit, every single one of us, our spirit is crying at what we're doing with the human experience. Right? We are as humans letting ourselves down left, right, and center. And our spirits are battling to bring us up into that higher consciousness of caringness, of empathy, of compassion, of collaboration. And we're fighting that all the time. And if we let that spirit be our guide, be our compass, let the love generator constantly, by sharing love, you're always regenerating love, then we would be so much better human beings. My daughter this week is about to have my second grandson, and we were looking forward to it very much. He'll be born tomorrow. He's a Down syndrome child, and we don't know much about Down syndrome because obviously there's never been one in the family, and it was the luck of the draw, just too many chromosomes. Nobody ever knows what causes it. But what I have found is I myself have gone on to various communities and said, look, I'm a grandma about to have a Down syndrome grandchild. What suggestions do you have for me? And the support has been overwhelming. And this is the thing, if we could just step in supporting other people who are, quote, different or differently abled or going through mental struggles or going through something else, and we say, we're there for you. There's plenty of persecution out there. There's plenty of shame and blame out there. How about we just reach out with some compassion? What can I do? I'm there for you. Because that's all what people want to know, is that I count as a person, no matter what is going on, whether I'm gay, whether I'm straight, whether I'm polka dot. It doesn't matter. If we could see the person's character, the heart and soul of the person, that is really what counts. Not the exterior, not the sexual preference, not the religious preference, not even the food preference. That I'm with you. I'm 80% vegan. It is about, let's start igniting our heart and souls, and then that will, as I said, raise our consciousness, and we will realize that life we have been living has been wrong. And that doesn't mean persecute yourself, because that's what you were taught. You now have a choice to change it and get out there with some compassion and to start supporting people. I'm a lot on a lot of animal groups on Facebook, and I'm always posting happy sayings or pictures or some things up there because they're a supportive group. Use social media as your voice. We don't want damnation. That never goes anywhere. Accountability, yes, but there's a fine line. Because if you want people to enjoy the battle, don't bring out the machete. It's going to scare them, right?
Yeah. So with this book, I did donate the entire first week of sales. So it was published March 31st, and 100% of the author royalties went to one of the animal rescues that I work most closely with here in Tampa. In fact, the foster cat that I currently have, who is in the process of getting adopted, we found her the most wonderful lady that is welcoming this kitty to her home. But I fostered through Rags to Riches Animal Rescue, and so 100% of my royalties had gone to them. And then in addition, I'm doing 10%, like basically in perpetuity, that is going to be donated to charitable causes. And after a few months, I might switch it up to try to, like, you know, kind of spread that to other rescues that are local as well. But I feel that even just being generous with whatever we have, I mean, flight attendants do not earn a ton of money. I'm not sure if that is common knowledge, but we're not wealthy by any means, but we get by. And I feel that the sales from this book, they matter more to me because I'm really hoping that the content connects with people, and I'm really hoping that it draws this parallel to where our world could be heading unless we actually take a stand. So in terms of like the profits from the book, I really wanted to use those externally. I wanted that to benefit others. And I like to joke that everything I have in this world, I tend to give it away. It's kind of a problem. I had this rule for several years at the airline. If anybody on the plane complimented anything, I'd be like, here, you can have it. So they'd compliment my watch, and I'd be like, here, you can have it. And then at the end of the day, I'd be like, oh, I don't know what time it is because I gave away my watch.
Where's my bra strap?
Yeah. So it was like this ongoing joke because people just kind of knew me as like basically giving away everything I own. I like to say if I had become a vet, which maybe I did miss my calling, but if I had become a veterinarian, I would just go out of business because I would do pro bono work all the time. That's all I would do. That's all I would do. I know how much the rescues need it. But I feel like, to me, all of the things that I think people are typically concerned with, they just never mattered. It never mattered to me. Like material things or, wealth for the purpose of accumulating it. To me, what good does any of that have if it's not shared with others? What good is any of that? As long as, like, I would prefer not to be homeless or like hungry. I know there are a lot of starving people in this country, which is a big problem. But I mean, as long as I have like the basic necessities, why does anything else like need to be acquired by me and not given back? I don't feel like that's our purpose, is to take. I just wasn't, I missed that lesson. Apparently I missed that lesson and never got on that boat. But I want to use my voice, whether it's through my books, through my past and future websites that provide information to people that are really lacking resources. whether it's through my social work endeavors, my animal rescue endeavors, and I hope to start my own nonprofit by the end of the year. That's kind of my goal, to register as a 501c3 here in Florida. But I want that to leave a mark on others. Like I don't I don't ever want to accumulate things just so that I can have more. That doesn't make sense to me. I think as an empath, really the beauty that can be found in this world is in shared experiences
Mm,
and in knowing that you have alleviated some suffering, maybe not all of it, but you have alleviated some suffering for this animal or this person or this community or this population. And so, I mean, this is what I have to offer right now. I have my book. This was a scary one to publish because I was told by publishers that there's not a market for a book featuring a bisexual. And then I also address racial injustice in this book. And I feel like I could get a lot of negative feedback because I could kind of really upset people, the ones that maybe are defensive and don't think that racism is that bad. And then conversely, people of color, they might feel that I don't understand that experience. And they're right, I don't. And I want to do better and I want to grow and I want to understand. What I do know is that people of color have been mistreated for far too long. And
yes.
it's unacceptable. And I do know that denial and defensiveness is not doing anyone any favors. And so my hope with this book was to let people feel seen, understood, whether they're bisexual or they have forms of mental illness, because one of the characters does struggle immensely with depression, whether they are a person of color and have felt like they're always the one ignored in the room, which I have seen and tried to swiftly nip that in the bud when I've seen it, but it happens. And if I can really make anyone feel heard and understood by this book, or if I can inspire people to really chase after what's important and to defend the people that need it the most, then I will have succeeded.
Mm.
That's all I wanted to do.
Well, you never know the domino effect. You know, when you inspire someone, you're doing something, and then somebody else goes, that felt good. I'm going to continue doing it. And then they inspire someone, and we don't always see those end results, that wonderful ricochet that goes out. But perhaps your book will not make great sales in Florida, right? But this is a book for all the people that are repressed, that do want to be spoken about, who do know that if we don't do something, we are still talking about this in 238. So, yes, it's like, when are we going to grow up? The universe gave me a saying 5 years ago: the universe is going to shake us up to wake us up, for us to step up and change it up and grow up vibrationally, but grow up as a human race. It's not all about you, it's about us. You are gifted with a beautiful instrument. Learn how to play it. Then go and join an orchestra and play harmoniously together, because together we can transcend. But we've got to be strong in who we are and what we're offering ourselves. So find something to stand for, right? Find something that, well, I know you probably got busy lives. I had 3 children, all of that. I ended up being the neighborhood house where kids would come to when things
I
were
love
going
that.
wrong at house. I would have parents screaming at me at the door, but it was a little sanctuary for the kids, because they had no voice. I remember having someone telling me, this 14-year-old I had, "I'm sorry, there is nothing you can do. He's his parents have complete control over him until a certain age, and there's nothing you can do about it." And I felt absolutely heartbroken that there was no voice for this child, that he couldn't, even if he could tell me, there was nothing that I could do about it other than try and support him the best way. I did end up mediating between him and his mum, and they did sort it out. But to be told that, nope, not until he's of age. And I've interviewed so many people, foster children, etc., where they talk about all the horrors, and then when you're of age, you suddenly got the freedom, but you don't know what to do with it because you've basically been a prisoner of something all your life, and that transition into being free and choosing for yourself. We do so much damage to our human race with our conditions, with our dictation, with fit in the box. I want you in the box. This is where you belong. Don't get out unless I tell you so. And we've seen this over and over again, and every one of us doesn't fit in that box because it isn't meant to be a box. We're fluid creatures that are meant to flow. So we have to put right what is wrong. And the biggest way and the fastest way we can do that is put right what is wrong within us so that we can be the change that we seek. And it's only going to happen if we step up to change it up.
I agree. I actually had several bloggers when they were interviewing me before this book was released, kind of ask me about. So, in the blurb, the final sentence of the blurb is to protect others. Lexi would have to launch a movement that could destroy everything important to her, including her promising new romance. And the tagline for this story is that she failed to save her brother and her best friend from destructive forces. Could she topple the most sinister villain of all time? I had several bloggers that asked me, like, this sounds like a romance. What does this talk about? The most sinister villain? Like, who is this? And I think, spoiler alert, I think it's so interesting because to me, the most sinister villain of all time is clearly ourselves. It's
Yes.
clearly humanity. Like,
Yes.
I would never have, this one individual monster. It's our own capability of inflicting deliberate pain and suffering on other beings and choosing to do so. And so
Without any conscious, without any
without
consciousness
and no
whatsoever. Yeah.
and
No empathy,
usually
nothing.
without repercussion either,
Yes.
because the people that have the most power, if they abuse it, there's not a whole lot of consequences
Nope.
for
We've
that
seen
abuse.
that in the last few
We've seen
years.
that. But
Yes.
it's so amusing to me. And I probably annoy my friends because if there's ever a movie or like some book about some alien invasion, I kind of like get frustrated because I just keep thinking, why do we vilify? We're our own worst enemy. We don't need another species to come and destroy us. Like, look at what we're doing to our
They
planet.
don't want to
Look
come
at what
because
we're doing.
they're too scared to come here amongst them.
They're like, we'll
Look what
just
we'll
let
do to
them
them.
burn it to the ground.
Yeah. No, but
But I
every
just feel
time they
like
do come, whether they're good or not, we just shoot them down. So, it's like, why would they want to come here?
our approach to life is to think that anything else out there is going to come like out to get us. Like we have our own problems that we need to resolve. And honestly, like when I wrote that about the most sinister villain, like that is not an alien life force. That is right here on planet Earth. And it's up
It's
to
in our
us to make
actions.
sure that love wins instead. It's
Yes.
up to us.
Yes. Yes. We can all look back as our consciousness rises and go, oh my God, I remember that time I said this or I did that. And now you know it's wrong. The thing is, in your transition of raising your consciousness into a state of love, where you can actually feel that vibration, where you can't knowingly hurt anyone else because it would hurt you to do so, right? As I said before, there is that painful transition because you're going to look at, oh gosh, what have I said? What have I done in the past? I now looking back, I realized what I said really hurt that person. I didn't really mean it. It's just like what came out because there was no accountability. There was no guidance system for people. We were being told, especially in North America, opulence is where you need to be. More is more. More fame, more followers, more money, more. And it is absolute chasing the illusion of unhappiness because you cannot be happy chasing the exterior world or approval from other people. And the money and the riches and the power, those leave you so empty. The empowerment lies within. The enrichment and the abundance of who you are lies in your heart, soul, and your spirit. That's when you really know not only are you love, but you are here for a purpose and here for a reason to do good to one another. But we need to turn the volume up on those people with the lack of consciousness and invite them. But there'll be some people so hell-bent in staying where they are, we will never, ever be able to bring them across the bridge to the higher consciousness but they will go by the wayside, by dinosaur, because we know we've already tilted. We've already tilted into a higher consciousness. This is the reason why they're screaming so much and trying to change so many rules and trying to stop us from evolving. Too late, especially with women. You can't put the baby back in the womb. We're born. We're here. And we're going to change it up. And we're
I
putting
sure hope
everyone on
so.
notice.
I sure hope so, because I feel that Texas and Florida in particular, and a handful of other states, have done a great job of making sure that women do not have control over literally the most basic freedom anyone can
Right.
ever have, which is your own body. And that, to me, the fact that it has been turned into a religious crusade and it has been
Uh,
labeled controversial is
uh-huh.
so shameful. Someone's control over their physical being, that has nothing to do with the rest of society. That has, I mean, the fact that it even could be twisted into something that is then targeted and taken away and revoked. I worked with Planned Parenthood when I was still in Texas. And as a social worker, I saw a lot of things too. And I will tell you, we have teenage girls who are raped routinely. We have cases of incest, cases of just really abuse, even with adults, where they're kind of manipulated into things. Or, sometimes all the precautions fail, and just seeing the suffering and the lives that have ended because of it. And I will tell you what, when I was sexually assaulted, if someone had told me what I could and couldn't do with my body, I would have killed myself. I would have at
Uh,
least considered it. And I'm an optimist. So
mm,
people that already have some disadvantages, have some horrible things going
yes.
on in their lives, I feel that everyone that has authorized these laws has committed murder, because those
Yes.
lives that have been lost and the ones that are going to continue to be lost until we can give people back basic human rights, that blood is on their hands. And I told DeSantis that in no uncertain terms. I'm sure that, his ego is not going to allow him to even read or care about the letters
No.
that I send, but I'm going to
Can he
keep sending
read?
them.
Yeah.
His staffer
Uh,
is probably going to read it. Let's just be clear.
and
But
it'll be
like,
put on the pile. One of the things you got to understand with Trump and DeSantis and Putin and any of those other tyrants out there, they are purely in it for power. They're thoroughbred narcissists. It is all about them. Anybody that's not with them is against them, so they're the enemy. And DeSantis is an absolute idiot, even a bigger idiot than Trump, if you could say that. Sorry, I've said it. I've said it. I've owned it. And it is absolutely incredible. But you have to understand who's following him. People who don't take accountability for their own life. Point a finger. It's government's fault. Government did this to me. Government did that to me. There's three fingers pointing back at you saying, well, what are you doing about it? How are you doing things to change your life, to better your life? It's not the government's job to make your life better. It's for you to seek a better life. And then hopefully, and what the government is meant to do is to match that, to give you the resources in order to do that. But if you're going to constantly be pointing fingers and not take any accountability of your own life, I've interviewed people who have gone through just what you talked about, incest and sexual rape from early childhood, 3, 4, 5, grandparents, fathers, you name it. Who they've become today is exemplary. They went through the suffering. They went through it all, and they decided that they weren't going to live in vengefulness. They weren't going to live in hate. That their childhood had already been taken from them. But the victimization wasn't going to stay with them, because they were no longer going to be a victim, because now it was their choice what they did with their body and their life. We are all capable. Some people need more support around them. Some people need more encouragement. Some people need just an arm around them to let them know it's okay, step by step. But when we looking at ourselves, holding our crap accountable, and that goes with what we say to ourselves is also what we say to other people. Learning to love ourselves for who we are, what we're here for, not what somebody else thinks we're here for, not what somebody else wants from us, not what somebody else thinks we should do, but for who we are, and embrace that lovingly. We then are the solution that this world needs.
And I think that it takes a really strong support system to help
Yeah.
someone through a crisis like that.
Yes.
And so, through my writings, I hope to empower people and to make them feel seen and heard. When publishers told me that there's no market for bisexual characters, I thought to myself, well, I was never given the chance. I would have voted for that. Like, I would have
Right.
bought those books. I never saw any. And, I just want, if people can feel that they are supported and loved for who they are, the
Yes.
characters in this book have experienced so much adversity because of race, some because of neurodiversity, some because of sexual orientation. And I just feel like if that can make them feel seen and heard and really believe in themselves, then I have accomplished my goal. And in addition to that, like, I want to be a support system through my writings. And then I also want to be a support system really through my interactions, because working in, the social work realm, I've seen so many folks who are already shunned by
Mm.
society. They hear the words in the legislation that's targeted against them, right? That is aiming to destroy them. They know that there is basically a target on their back and that they've already been labeled other and unworthy. And so I feel, in addition to, speaking to those people in positions of power, I feel that really just supporting and being there for and walking alongside the folks who already have so many obstacles placed before them unnecessarily for no good reason. And then now, they have all this trauma that's occurring daily. I feel like we need to come together and we need to provide that companionship, because the folks that are able to make it through those really tough circumstances, more often than not, they had a great team around them helping them. We are social animals, and I think that type of companionship fuels you through all of the difficulties.
Be there for each other, right? And the thing is, when somebody's going through struggle, acknowledge the struggle, acknowledge how hard it must be for them, but don't let them become the struggle. They're a person who is struggling. That's not their name. That's not who they are. Help them empower themselves to go through that struggle and become stronger in their own persona. It's the same with people with labels with depression or fibromyalgia or cancer. Some people become the cancer, they become the fibromyalgia. No, it's what you have. It's not who you are. And the more we embrace the person for who they are, less do they feel like a victim, more empowered they feel who they are, the taller they can stand in their own lives and be that beacon of light for others.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Sorry,
think
folks, I'm
that
going croakier here.
no, no, I feel
Sound like
so bad. Are
frog.
you doing okay?
I'm doing okay. Just the throat is going croaky. Yeah. Not much holds me back. No COVID is going to hold me back. So,
Well, I'm impressed and I hope that you feel better. I think that we're all multifaceted. We all have
yes.
so many different dimensions. So the character in the book that does battle depression and suicidal ideation, he's such a complex and brilliant human. And I tried my best, and I guess verdict's not out yet, but I tried my best to really capture, all of the amazing things that he has to offer and all of the amazing ways that he was able to really launch this movement, even in spite of all of the struggles that he was enduring personally. And I think, I have anxiety. I will for life. I found a lot of things that help with it. I've actually counseled people on anxiety, so I'm supposed to be kind of the expert in the field. But I do think it'll be there for life. I think I can keep it under control, and I can, I have healthy outlets that mitigate it. But you know
That comes with being an
what
empath, love.
I know
It is. It comes,
you
no,
can't if
you
you
can't
can't
erase
tune
your
out the
empathy
suffering of the
and
world.
and the anxiety is the empathicness is because you care so much and it brings
Yeah.
anxiety because you want to heal everybody, you want to get to everyone and save them. And I'm saying stop broadening your thing, narrow it down to focus on what you can do, what you're empowered to do, and empowering others to do it too, instead of
And
taking on
celebrate
so
the
much.
victories.
Yes,
Celebrate the victories.
yes.
So, if I am able, when this foster cat is adopted, and the last dog that we got adopted, and the dog that I flew up to North Carolina because that's where the rescuers were, like, celebrate those victories, because there
Yeah.
are going to be so many times where you feel that you weren't able to, help this person the way that you wanted to, or help this animal. That's part of life. But if you celebrate those victories and really just like keep that momentum going and keep your spirits high and just like kind of stay focused on that goal. The characters in the book, they have their own struggles. Like me, I will have anxiety for life. It comes and goes in waves, and I'm trying my best to keep it under control, but I will have it. But that is not a reason that I can't go out there and really make a difference within my own community. And in some ways, that allows me to connect with people that might be afraid to talk about their diagnosis, because I did a safety fair at the airline. I'm on the peer support team there. And we're a group that basically like reaches out to any flight attendants going through personal or professional crises. And we link them up to like counseling, mental health resources, really anything that they need. And I remember doing the safety fair, and I was like laughing at the end of the day, because it really got to the point where people would come up to the table and say like, well, I'm not really sure if I should talk about this, but I do have some issues. And I'd be like, well, I have raging anxiety, and this is what helped me. So if you're struggling, like, I would basically broadcast.
Yes.
But I feel like if you can remove that the taboo and the stigma, if you can
Yeah.
make people feel comfortable, like, oh, I'm not the only one, someone else is
That's the
struggling
point.
too, and this actually helped her. This is actually like, this therapist knows how to give me like calming techniques and things that might kind of talk me down when I start getting really heated. So I was basically just like telling everybody about my raging anxiety and insomnia, but I also felt like, I mean, why would I have hidden that out of my own embarrassment or fear or something? I don't think that we should be embarrassed about that or fear that. And then if that made someone else feel a little bit less abnormal, if it made
Yeah.
even just one of those people feel a little bit less flawed in any way, then I'm happy with that result, because
Yeah.
I just wanted to be upfront, like, look, we've got issues. Like, everyone's probably got something that they're afflicted with, and this is how you can like kind of push through it. This is what will help you. This is what I found wasn't super helpful. I think just that relatability and that authenticity, I would like to believe that that really makes a difference for people.
It's one of the reasons I do these shows and been doing them for the last 11 years, is that we talk openly what our struggles are. I'm an asthmatic and fibromyalgia and arthritis, and I get environmental depression, empathic depression. When I pick up things, it can go down the rabbit hole. I am not my diseases. They are just traveling with me through life, right? And sometimes they have a bigger voice than I'd like them to have, but it's all a question of management, recognizing when they're coming up, what do I need to do to make sure that they don't take over? And you learn to navigate it. And so many people have gone through their own issues, and they share their techniques. And I think one of the reasons we're seeing so much more depression and anxiety in the world is that we're all so saturated by the hate. We're so saturated by the righteousness. We're so saturated by the cruelty that we are doing to each other. The people in power that can annihilate people just for their own ego. We're all saturated with that. We're saturated with the fact that we are just such horrible human beings at times, but we have the capability of being so much more. And those are the people like yourself I like to interview, because although you have the anxiety, and although I truly understand when you can't save someone, when you can't do something, how it gets to you, it really is an injury to your heart. Um, you work your way through it because you look at, okay, I couldn't save this one, but let's look at the ones that I did and focus on that. And then tomorrow there'll be another one. And that is important because that's what keeps your psyche strong. But I think what we're looking at so much in this world right now is such a high anxiety, depression, a dis-ease, which is leading to diseases, because of all the repression we're feeling around the world. And I think that's part of the transition going into that higher consciousness, because in that higher consciousness, it doesn't affect you the same way because we're too busy being nice to each other.
Really just offering that love and compassion that I think has been denied to so
Yes.
many individuals. Just and the I wonder, I feel that this is probably something that everyone would experience, but just like the energy, especially being such like a lifelong empath. I mean, I knew what I was before I knew the term for it. I knew that like if there was something injured, like I was going to do my best to help it. And I knew that if I had anything, if I got $5 like for a holiday or something, I was going to give it away. That was just like that was my mentality and my perspective. But I genuinely feel when I am authentic with folks, like when I'm connecting with people, when I am supporting them, during all of the racial injustice that was brought to light, it's always been an issue. But when it kind of got the public attention once again in 2020, and I would show up to work, and it's a pandemic, and we're in this really volatile setting on an airplane, and people are throwing things at us. And anyway, I would show
Oh,
up to work, and with a person of color, which I'm not. I am a white woman. I would just say, are you doing okay? And can I help you? Like what is going on that I can help you with? And I'm so sorry. And I know if this is hard for you right now, because they would be getting hateful messages from other people, and they would be getting just all of this like mistreatment. A lot of it was really microaggressions. Some of it was macroaggressions. And I think like just wanting to learn how to better serve and connect with the people that clearly had suffered so much for something that never should have been used against them ever. I think that fuels, like it provides energy. Like it makes me want to do better and to do
yeah.
more and to learn more. And I'm a very active voice and presence within the LGBTQ plus community, but the one little subset that I knew almost nothing about until I moved to Texas and started meeting different people was trans individuals. I have a lot of gay friends, a lot of lesbian, a lot of, bisexual friends, but like once I kind of learned how much of a vicious attack had been launched on trans individuals, I was like, what can I do? What can I do to stand up for these people that are being crucified for no
Yes.
reason? And what can I do, you know, to learn how to make people feel more comfortable, to use pronouns? If people get so defensive about using pronouns, if that is going to make someone else feel more comfortable and more accepted and more loved, then I am so happy. I am so happy to be able to show them that they're appreciated. I am so happy to respect them for who they are. And I feel like, just learning and growing and trying so hard to connect with people and apologizing if I don't get it right. Cause I'm sure I did misstep. A lot of times I probably offended people, apologizing, not taking it personally, but seeing like, how can I grow from this and do better and make sure that like, other people in the community, like that we're all doing better together. I think that gives like this fuel and this energy to where I want to continue fighting, even when the odds are pretty much they're stacked against me, especially in this
You'll do
current
it for the rest of
location.
your life, love. You will, because that's who you are, right? It's who you are. And you're a crusader, out there, fighting the wrongs out there. And we need people who will step up. We need people that speak up. We need people that will show what's wrong. And then, maybe up to other people what they're going to do about it. It has to be free will. We can't drag anybody into something, but we've got to show them enough, and empower them to want to change. And, I'm here in Canada, and during the pandemic, there was an awful scene caught on video in one of these stores where a 90-year-old with dementia was coming into the store, and this great big white guy just pushed him out of the store on into the street. And we would have it be mostly elderly of our Oriental people being kicked or being tripped are being, persecuted because, the Chinese gave us the virus, so it's all your fault. And I think, please own up to your ignorance. Your ignorance. How dare you? How dare you? You are arrogant and ignorant. This is something that really gets me because this is where that, and this, there's a lot of neanderthals out there. There isn't much going on between the ears because they've just decided not to nurture it for whatever circumstances. I remember another interview being done on TV, and actually, I think it was a Trevor Noah one from The Daily Show. And there was showing an interview of a white supremacist being interviewed. And then it turned to his wife, about, well, what do you think? And she had two young children. And she said, yeah, we've got to get them before they get us. And then he says, oh, I love you, babe, right? And I thought, where is this get us? Why are you assuming that people of color or different ethics is coming to get you? Who's been telling you this? They just want to get on with their lives. They don't want to be got, and they don't want to get you.
I don't know. I don't know where that stems from. I think that stems from a competitive nature to acquire more or a sense of entitlement. I really don't know because I could never imagine going through life thinking that I have to annihilate people because of a demographic, like
Yeah,
because of I cannot imagine, I can't understand that mindset, but I would think that it stems from feeling threatened, like feeling
yes.
threatened that, you know, these are the people that are to blame for why my life is the way that it is, or
Mm,
these are the people that are going to lead to, the fall of civilization, or I don't know. I just that mentality where you're looking for folks to really just knock down, like folks who I think it's okay to look at the people critically that are directly injuring other people and doing it repeatedly, but like people that are just living their lives, like that is why I go back to my rule of thumb. If it is not causing
yeah,
deliberate and direct harm to self or others, like it is fine. If
yes,
people do not subscribe to gender norms, who cares? It's all made up anyways. I was
right.
told for the first 20 years of my life that I was a bad female because I wasn't quiet and I was always like yelling about different things, getting excited, too aggressive, asked like other people out. I was supposed to wait and be asked out because like females aren't supposed to do that. And I was like, who made these rules? Who made any
Exactly,
of these rules?
exactly. Exactly. Why can a guy do this and a girl can't do that? And it goes back to them wanting everybody in their place, in their box, in their lane. Why? Because it's easier for them to control. Well, if you don't wish to be controlled, live by your own free will, by your own choices, and make sure that it doesn't cause harm to anyone else while you are standing up and standing up for something. But if we just go by by the rule of do no harm to others, and or to self, and just be. I'm a person that don't particularly see color. I have a lot of friends that are all different colors. I don't look at them, oh, they're Indian, or they're black, or they're this, they're that. That's their culture. Wonderful. I look at the heart and soul of the person, the character of that person. And I think if more people place importance on the character and the heart and soul of a person and stop worrying about what other bloody skin we're in, we'd get on with life a lot better. It's an issue that is being pumped up by DeSantis type people, right? And that's only, as you said, derived from by fear. And if we want to make a difference, if we want to save the human world, we want to save the animal world, then we have got to be the ones to step up and do it.
And we have to, you know, not with violence, but we have to
No,
call out the injustice that we see occurring because I think a lot of people also don't really, they have their own strong personal beliefs, but they don't really want to make put in the time or the effort to actually do anything meaningful or incite any type of meaningful change. They're like, oh, even the people that really do support a lot of basic human rights, they're kind of feeling a little bit hopeless or a little bit like unsure how they could influence their sphere. And I just am of the mindset that the same energy that fuels me to want to connect with people and want to do better and to want to acknowledge, the wrongs that have been done to certain communities so that we can rectify them and
Yeah.
so that we can give those people a sense of belonging and give everyone the empowerment to be who they are meant to be, who they are, who they already are. That same fuel that I get from really connecting with people and trying to understand and trying to, make them feel loved and appreciated. I get that fuel too, knowing that I'm standing up against the
Mm.
bullies and the politicians in Texas. We're just as big of bullies as the ones here in Florida. Actually, I mean, arguably they're kind of competing, but either way, standing up and launching my very small scale, my website that I created, and knowing that there could be legal ramifications. But if I helped one woman, if I gave
Yeah.
one woman the opportunity to take control over her own body, then it was worth it. It was worth it.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. I
I
mean,
think that it's a risk. It's a risk.
yeah.
And it's a risk publishing a book that, you know, might really rile up some folks, or some people might not enjoy it. But at the same time, if it has meaning and value to the folks who need it the most, then that's really all I can ask for.
The thing is, it's not going to impact the people that we would like to change because they're not the people that are going to follow you. They follow their like the algorithm. They're going to go where the hate is. They're going to go with wherever the hysteria is. They're not there to kind of listen. Unfortunately, it's very hard to reach those people because we're on a totally different vibe. But the people you are going to reach are those that are here, that are tired of that old rhetoric, that knows that something has to be done. And you're going to invite those people to change. And the people higher, they're already in change. They'll be the ones to support you, supporting the others. But to the people we really want to get to and, and change, we're talking gobbledygook to them. They
All
just
I can
can't
do
hear us,
is all
right?
I can do is show them the animal rescue missions and how heartwarming in the videos, and the lives that were saved that way. Show them the two most amazing people that I have met since moving to Florida. Well, I take that back. I've met a lot of amazing people, but two of the most amazing folks that I've met since moving to Florida are a couple that has their own LGBTQ plus friendly merchandise store. So they have all of these shirts that talk about love, they talk about acceptance, they talk about unity, and really just embracing and accepting people the way that they are. And they offered me a spot at their vendor fair at their booth last week for free. There's like a vendor's fee and everything because I was selling my books to raise money for animal rescue. I was selling some little crafts that I made and everything. And I just remember thinking, if everyone could exude the kind of love
Yeah.
that these two women, these two amazing women, are exuding, and like be the amazing parents that they are to their little girl. Like if everyone could just show that kind of love, like this world would be drastically changed. And if I can be at their booth, if I can be talking to people and, petting people's dogs and telling them about this book that I wrote and telling them how much I adore this couple that has made this amazing business that's changing lives and making people feel really included and valued, then like that is progress, and
Yes.
it doesn't have to be necessarily kind of aggressive or didactic,
No.
but just like experiencing it, just showing people, oh my gosh, so this awesome couple, they let me set up a booth at their stand just so that we could raise money for animal rescue. They are the kindest people, they are wonderful.
Yeah.
I think that that can take momentum. I think that that can spread and can kind of get people to think, huh, so maybe like we've been vilifying something really ridiculous and silly that has no impact on that person's character. It's literally just their expression of love. Like I hope that there is a way to spread that message even to the folks that might not necessarily want to hear it, just by demonstrating and living and walking it.
Yeah. It's planting seeds, right?
Yes.
Planting seeds and watering them. Keep nurturing them. Once you've turned people into a certain consciousness, then that seed is going to grow whether they like it or not. So it's planting the seeds. So how do people get hold of you? How do the people buy the book? Where can they reach you, love?
That is a great question. So it's on Amazon Mid-Flight by Lisa Wilkes. It's on Barnes and Noble. I have my website. So it's lisamichelewilkes.com. So my full name, lisamichelewilkes.com. And I have on there too, the different places that it can be purchased. And then also the rescues that the nonprofits that the proceeds are going to. So people have all that information. And then, I hope folks enjoy this book. I had a hard time writing some of the scenes, particularly the ones with mental illness. We have a lot of mental illness within my family and my friends, and I wanted to make sure, like you said, to capture the whole person and not just the disease. Like I wanted to tread carefully. I wanted to tread carefully on the issues of race too, because I understand that as a white female that I don't understand the struggle that people of color have faced in this country, but that I want to support them in their efforts to be viewed as equals, because they should have been since the dawn of time. And the fact that they have not been and that they have been treated differently really makes me upset, and I want to do better. So I hope that people enjoy this book. And I like to tell folks that they supported animal rescue through each purchase. So even if they didn't love the book, they still saved a life, but hopefully they love it too.
Right.
So.
And folks, it's Lisa Michelle Wilkes, Wilkes, for those that are listening, .com, and all of her other links are there. It's a great book to give to people to share, because you've kind of got part romance, part thriller, part, politics, part,
Futuristic sci-fi, dystopian.
Yeah, exactly. Everything mushed into there. So
it's a hybrid.
So you get this is the thing, books that I put down and I keep thinking about, then I know they've been good books because they're food for thought. And so this is a book where you can read it just as a novel, but at the end of it, you're going to go, Right? And that's what we want, because then that food for thought is something that's been planted in you, where you then begin to see other people differently. And if we could just change your perspective, how you see life, the people that are being persecuted, the animals that are being badly treated, the wrongs that are being put upon them by our own perceptions and attitudes, then already you're changing that tide, and that's the important thing, right? Let's all be nice to each other. It takes such less energy to be nice to each other than it does to hate each other. Hate just is the wrong kind of energy. It burns out quickly, and then you look for something else to hate so you can get your energy back. Try love and compassion. It's a
much
beautiful
less
flow.
Depleting.
Yes.
Much less debilitating.
Yes, it's regenerative. It really is. It's something that keeps you going, right? So yeah, give love a chance, and let's save those animals out there. Let's be nice to each other as human beings, and let's change the tide on what's really happening out there, because we came to this planet all different colors, all different variations, all different types of people for a reason. So no religion can tell you it's a white man's world and everybody else is their slave and they're wrong, because that is not God's message, not the reason why he put us down here. So let's all be nice to each other. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tab at the top there, and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration, it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.